Welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one.
I think so too.
This one's a little tricky.
It is, right.
Yeah.
You guys have sent us a ton of material about this, Chris Butler
Yeah, that Chris Butler,
and his organization.
Science of Identity Foundation.
Right, the Science of Identity Foundation.
Yeah.
It's called.
Sometimes called that, yeah.
So we've got
We've got a lot to unpack.
court documents,
Oh, yeah.
excerpts from books on cults, even social media posts from ex-members.
Lots of different angles.
Yeah, so yeah, it's fascinating.
It is a lot. And I think our mission today is going to be
to try to
to kind of separate fact from speculation.
Yeah, what's going on with this guy?
What's really going on with this controversial spiritual leader?
Yeah, it's fascinating how many different angles this brings up.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
we have Butler's own past, the inner workings of the Science of Identity Foundation,
Right.
alleged financial irregularities.
And then
And
the psychological aspects
yeah,
of how spiritual groups operate.
especially
with such a charismatic,
with a charismatic figure at the helm.
yeah, right at the head of it all.
Yeah, so I think maybe a good place to start is with Chris Butler himself.
Yeah, let's dive into his background.
Yeah, I mean, his backstory is pretty wild.
It's pretty wild.
You know, convicted drug smuggler in the 70s ends up as this spiritual leader.
Multi-million-dollar organization.
Right, with this huge organization, multi-million-dollar organization.
Like, how does that even happen?
That's the question, right?
It makes you wonder.
It really does.
Was it genuine or was it just a calculated move?
Grace.
You know, some people look at it as this incredible story of redemption,
Totally.
but others are way more skeptical.
Yeah. And then there's this whole name change thing.
Yeah, he starts his Siddhis Warpdas
Siddhis, right?
was the name he was given
When he was a sannyasi.
when he was a sannyasi, yeah.
Basically a renunciate.
Someone who gives up all their worldly possessions and attachments.
Right.
All that stuff.
Yeah, but then he becomes...
Siddhaswarupananda.
Right.
And keeps that name.
Yeah, and keeps it even after leaving the sannyasi order.
It's kind of a key detail.
It is.
Because within Gaudiya Vaishnavism, which Butler says he follows,
right,
leaving the sannyasi order and keeping the name is...
unusual.
Yeah, really unusual.
Very unusual.
Ex-members see it as hypocritical.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like he's using the title for authority.
Oh, I see.
Without actually following all the rules.
Without living up to the principles of it.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so we have this potentially contradictory figure.
Leading
SIF, the Science of Identity Foundation.
sometimes called Chaitanya Mission.
Right, sometimes called Chaitanya Mission.
And some of the sources.
Yeah. And then to add another layer of complexity, we have Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh, yeah.
The former U.S. representative.
Presidential candidate.
And presidential candidate. Her family has been involved with SIF for years.
For a long time.
And so that connection adds another whole dimension, right?
Yeah, it does.
Especially when you look at the accusations that are coming from ex-members that SIF operates like a cult.
Oh, yeah.
They're citing those books.
The cult psychology books you
The
sent.
cult psychology books I sent, yeah.
With the criteria.
That they meet the criteria.
They meet the criteria for a cult.
It's not a cult.
They talk about things like love bombing and NLP.
Okay, so for those of us who haven't read all those books, break it down for us.
Okay, so love bombing.
Love bombing.
It's basically this technique.
Okay.
Where new recruits are showered with just tons of affection, attention.
Okay.
To try to create this sense of belonging and euphoria.
Oh, wow.
That can make them more susceptible to influence.
I see.
And then there's NLP. Neuro-linguistic programming.
Okay.
Which is a bit more controversial.
Okay.
But it supposedly uses language and communication patterns to influence people's thoughts and behavior.
So both of these tactics are potentially used for manipulation.
That's what they're saying.
Okay, so that's what the accusation is.
It's something to keep in mind as we look more into this.
Right, and as we go deeper into SIF's practices and the allegations against Butler.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got this potentially manipulative environment, and then we add in the financial side of things.
Right.
And those database excerpts you sent.
Oh, yeah.
They're full of information about donations and ties to SIF.
Lots of stuff.
It's complicated.
Yeah, it gets pretty complex.
It does.
And I think it's really important to be careful.
Right.
Not to just jump to conclusions.
Yeah.
But we can look at it objectively.
Okay.
And just see what we see.
What patterns emerge.
Right, what kind of comes up.
Okay.
And one of the things that we see is a lot of large political donations connected to people who are listed
as SIF members.
as members or supporters
Like
of SIF.
Michael Tatzber, he's listed as a disciple.
Right.
And he made a $5,000 donation.
To Tulsi Gabbard's campaign.
To Tulsi Gabbard?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's one example.
And then there was...
Eduardo Tamayo,
right.
who went by the name Keyshav,
yeah.
described as a child of the cult.
Right, a child of the cult.
He donated to both Mike and Tulsi Gabbard's campaigns.
Wow.
So raises the question.
Yeah, are these just individuals?
Yeah, are they just
exercising
their right to support the candidates they believe in?
Right.
Or there's something else going on?
Is there a more coordinated effort
by SIF?
By SIF to gain political influence?
Yeah.
It's a really good question.
Yeah, you know.
It's easy to see conspiracy.
Everywhere.
Everywhere, right?
But, you know.
Yeah.
Got to be cautious.
We need to be cautious.
Yeah.
But then things get even murkier when we factor in QNet.
QNet.
QNet. So.
For people who don't know.
Yeah, what is that?
QNet is this multi-level marketing company.
Okay.
And they've been accused
of what?
Of running pyramid schemes.
Oh, wow.
Engaging in financial fraud.
In multiple countries.
In several countries, yeah.
So they're luring people in.
Yeah, with these promises of wealth.
Right.
And then people end up losing their savings.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, it's not good.
So some of the sources are claiming that people connected to SIF
were involved with promoting QNet.
Oh, interesting.
If that's true, it's a serious problem.
Oh, ethical problem.
It's not a big one.
Right, and it's not just QNet.
Right.
There are these direct accusations
against Butler
that he pressured followers for donations.
Oh, yeah.
Even threatening to stop eating.
If they didn't give him money?
They didn't give money.
That's a pretty serious allegation.
Oh, it's intense.
Yeah, it suggests that he might be abusing his power.
Right. Leveraging their devotion.
Yeah, their trust.
For financial gain.
For his own gain.
It's like a classic cult tactic.
Yeah, using guilt, emotional manipulation to get money.
And as if that wasn't enough.
There are even hints.
Of what?
Of potential sexual misconduct.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
Where's that coming from?
It's mostly social media posts from ex-members. And it's not totally clear.
Right.
But there's this recurring theme.
Of what?
Of women needing to be disciplined.
Around Butler.
Around Butler, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and there's mention of this internal document.
Oh, really?
That outlines these discipline measures.
But we don't have access to that.
We don't know.
Okay.
But we do have that excerpt.
Yeah.
Where Butler says he's used inflammatory and aggressive language in the past.
Which doesn't necessarily prove anything.
No.
Yeah.
It does maybe suggest a pattern.
Of potentially abusive behavior.
Yeah, potentially.
So we're seeing a pattern here, right?
Maybe.
Financial pressure. Hints of sexual misconduct. This overall atmosphere of control.
Control and manipulation.
Yeah.
And it's all happening within this community.
That seems very isolated.
Yeah, kind of cut off.
From the outside world.
Yeah, that's what makes it so concerning.
Right? It's not just about one person. One person's action.
It's about the whole system.
The whole system.
Enabling this behavior.
And it's not even just about the people.
Involved in SIF.
In SIF, right? This whole split.
Yeah. Between Butler
and Narayana Maharaj. It really highlights the potential for conflict.
And even aggression.
Yeah. So who is Narayana Maharaja?
He was this really respected figure.
Okay.
In the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition.
And they had a falling out.
A big one.
Him with him.
Yeah. Butler and his followers.
What happened?
Basically, ex-members describe SIF members just bombarding.
Oh, wow.
Narayana Maharaj's followers with emails.
Oh, my God.
And even showing up at their temple.
Really?
Yeah, in buses.
That's intense.
It's pretty wild. Yeah. It really speaks to that level of hostility that they seem capable of.
Okay.
And it reinforces this idea that they're isolated.
Right. Rejecting anyone.
Anyone who disagrees with Butler.
Which brings us back to Body Parampara.
Body Parampara.
Right. So remind us what that is.
So Body Parampara is this idea that spiritual authority is transmitted through the guru's physical form.
Okay, and it seems like SIF really emphasizes that.
Yeah. Butler's physical presence over anything else.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets a little tricky.
Right.
Because having a connection
to a guru can be good. Yeah.
It could be a source of inspiration, guidance.
Of course.
But it can also create
an unhealthy dependency.
Right.
Where you can't question the leader.
You can't question the leader.
Yeah, it's like they're replacing one authority figure
with another.
Yeah, with another.
Like trading one.
Maybe a strict parent
Right.
or a rigid religious upbringing.
For Butler.
For Butler, exactly. And that can be really dangerous.
Especially for people who have experienced trauma.
Trauma, yeah.
Yeah, and that's where those psychology excerpts
Are really important.
are so important.
Yeah.
They explain how trauma can create these vulnerabilities that make people more susceptible to a charismatic leader.
And a controlling group.
Exactly.
So someone who's experienced maybe abuse or neglect might see a guru like Butler
as a savior figure.
As a savior who can finally give them
love, accept
the things they've been missing.
the things they've always craved.
So they might overlook some red flags.
Oh, yeah.
Rationalize bad behavior.
Stay loyal no matter what.
Even when things get bad.
Even when things get really bad.
And those social media posts from ex-members.
Oh, man.
They're just heartbreaking.
They're tough to read.
They talk about the emotional toll.
Yeah, the guilt, shame, fear.
That were used to keep them in line.
That's a powerful reminder.
Of the damage that can be done.
When spiritual authority is abused.
It's a reminder that we need to
be critical.
Be critical. Trust our instincts.
When something doesn't feel right.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
A lot.
Financial dealings.
Yeah.
Possible cult tactics. Abuse allegations.
Internal conflict.
Psychology of it all.
Right. All the different factors.
What does it all mean?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I think even without definitive proof for everything, this deep dive shows us something.
About what?
About spiritual authority in general.
Okay, so how do we know who to trust?
That's the thing.
Especially these days.
Everyone's online.
Everyone's got a platform.
They all say they have the answers.
Right.
Like information overload.
Yeah, information overload applied to spirituality.
Yeah, so how do we...
We're bombarded with gurus.
Experts.
All promising us enlightenment.
Fulfillment, happiness.
How do we know who's genuine?
That's the challenge.
And who's trying to exploit us.
Yeah, and that's where I think those psychology excerpts
were really interesting.
Were really helpful.
Yeah.
You know that idea of the self-object parent?
Right. Explain that.
So basically it says that people who've experienced trauma, they might look for a guru.
Not just for guidance.
Not just for guidance, but to fulfill those unmet needs.
For what?
For love, acceptance, security.
The stuff they may have missed.
Earlier in life.
So they transfer those needs to the guru.
Yeah, it's like they see the guru as a parental figure.
Who can give them what they've always wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
And that might make them less likely to question things.
Even when things feel wrong.
Because they're so desperate for that connection.
Like want that belonging.
And they might ignore the warning signs.
And that makes them vulnerable.
To manipulation.
To abuse.
Which brings us back to those allegations against Butler.
Yeah, the financial pressure, the hints of sexual misconduct.
If true, it's a classic example of someone taking advantage.
Exploiting their position.
And this isn't unique to Sif.
Sadly, no. History's full of it.
Spiritual leaders who betray their followers.
Which is why it's so important to be careful.
To be discerning.
To think critically.
Trust our gut.
Yeah, trust your instincts.
Okay, so for our listeners, what are some key takeaways here?
Well, I think the first thing to remember is that nobody has all the answers.
Right.
Be wary of anyone who says they do.
Or demands obedience.
Yeah, blind obedience.
Right.
True spiritual growth comes from within.
Not from following someone else.
Not blindly, at least.
What about those red flags we talked about?
The isolation.
The financial pressure.
The control.
Those are all signs.
Big warning signs.
That something isn't right.
If a group is trying to isolate you.
Pressure you for money.
Control your life.
That's a problem.
A big problem.
Then do your research.
Yes. Don't just take their word for it.
Look for independent sources.
Talk to ex-members.
Read critical analyses.
Information is power.
The more you know.
The better decisions you can make.
And maybe most importantly.
What's that?
Trust your gut.
Trust your gut, yeah.
If something feels off.
It probably is.
Don't be afraid to walk away.
From a group, from a teacher.
Even if it means losing a community.
Your well-being comes first.
Because true spiritual growth isn't about conforming.
It's not about rules or beliefs.
It's about finding your own wisdom.
Your own connection.
To something bigger.
Yeah, it's about asking questions.
Challenging assumptions.
Learning, evolving.
So, to leave our listener with a final thought.
Yeah.
In this age of information overload.
It's more important than ever.
To be discerning.
To question everything.
You trust your own inner compass.
Absolutely.
To search for truth.
It's a personal journey.
And you have the right to find your own path.
On your own terms.
And remember, while the sources we've explored today raise questions about Sif and Chris Butler.
The final judgment is up to you.
Use this information.
Think critically.
Make your own informed decisions.
Exactly.
That's it for today's deep dive.
Thanks for joining us.
It was a challenging one.
But an important one.
Until next time.
Stay curious.
Stay informed.
And stay true to yourself.